Call it in the air. Heads or tails?
Oop, okay.
Tails.
It is heads. Another time, my friend. You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 40, Free Picks again.
Yeah, we're back with more random randomness.
Super random,
and really a lot of obscure stuff. We dive deep into the well of VGM to find some pretty obscure tracks from all sorts of stuff, including our opening track.
I was just going to say, speaking of obscure, the track that you just heard, some people may be familiar with, and the game's gotten a little bit more press in somewhat more recent years, not in the more recent years of where we're recording this in 2019.
Sure.
I remember seeing this re-released on like the Xbox consoles or Windows or something.
Oh, nice.
The game was Marathon 2 Durandal, which was originally a macOS game that came out in 1995. The track was called Theme, and it was composed by Power of Seven and Paul Sebastien.
For a second, I thought it said Power of Steven.
The Power of Steven.
The Power of Steven. Watch as Steven gets his power.
Yeah, you ever seen Steven Universe?
Nope.
Oh, well, there you go.
So tell me about this game and tell me about this song, because it's got that really repetitive vibe to it that kind of feels like trance. Like ambient trance a little bit.
Like it kind of opens up with like a hard rock vibe, and then it just slips into this like techno trance thing, which is really cool. The Marathon series, it's Marathon 2 Durandal, and And the third game was Marathon Infinity, which came out in 1996.
Okay.
They were first-person shooters on the macOS system.
Like pre-Doom. Or no,
around the same time.
Around the same time as Doom.
Yeah.
So did they use like a Doom type engine?
No, they used their own engine because there wasn't a whole lot of stuff being ported to macOS at the time.
Wow,
This was back in the days where, if you were on a Mac, you quote-unquote didn't have games. But, of course, people that didn't play on Macs didn't know what there was.
Right.
So these games were developed and published by Bungie. This is obviously Microsoft buyout days.
Right.
You could actually consider these a kind of precursor to the Halo game.
That's pretty cool.
So you play as a sort of, I don't want to call him a space marine because that's really like
Chaster Meef.
Doom. Chaster Meef?
Chaster Meef. You play as Chaster Meef.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Come on, Master Chief.
Oh,
did I just make your brain hurt a little bit?
You did. Because I do it's called a spoonerism, and I do that all the time, and it just didn't even
Chaster Meef.
Chaster Meef, indeed.
Amazing.
Oh, Lord. I don't actually think they give the guy a name, the character
name's
that you play
Steven.
as. Yeah, we'll go with Steven.
He's got the power.
He's got the power. It's the power of Steven.
One day, Steven will become the Chaster Meef.
Jeez.
We're starting off really goofy this
my God.
episode.
Yes, we are. As we should for free picks. But you play as an unnamed security officer. The game takes place in the year 2794.
Okay.
And it's actually fairly story heavy, which, I mean, if you think of the Halo games are very story heavy as well. Like you're playing a first person shooter, but there's a whole universe that you're understanding, like what these Halos are. And everything else.
And there's a lot of stuff happening in Halo.
Yeah.
Like throughout the game during your experience as you're moving throughout the worlds and the levels and everything. So this probably has a little bit of that as well.
Yep. The further you go on in the games, like by the third game, Marathon Infinity, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So it's called Marathon because in the first game you start off on this starship called the UESC Marathon, which is orbiting a colony on the planet Tau Ceti 4.
Okay.
But throughout the game, you're trying to defend the ship and its crew and everything from an alien race called the Four, PFHOR.
Okay.
And they are
Kind of like the Flood.
not exactly.
No.
They're more like, what's the name of the other race? Because the Flood are like the weird like mutant looking things.
Yeah.
And then there's like the big like beefy aliens.
Yeah.
They're kind of like those, except they're a little bit skinnier.
Okay.
And they have like these stabs that they like they have guns and stuff too.
Yeah,
but, they also have these like, I'm not gonna call them like light stabs because that's not what they are, but they hurt if you get hit with them.
Kind of like precursors to the
sword.
the sword.
Yeah.
Almost whatever
like
that sword was called.
I think it was just the energy sword.
Energy sword. Yeah.
And so the story of the game, because obviously this is before Halo, so the story isn't told as much in the stuff that you're doing as it is in terminals. So like all over the game, there's computer terminals that you can get into. Like you're basically reading like ship logs and journal entries.
So it's more like Metroid Prime.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I never got into the Metroid Prime games, which is funny.
More of a first-person adventure, which is what the Prime games were labeled as.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to really nail that home when they released Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
They're like, it's not a first-person shooter, it's a first-person adventure.
No, this is totally a first-person shooter. There's multiple guns, all sorts of different power-ups and stuff. I don't think they shied away from the shooter aspects of the game. It's just they told a lot of the story through these terminals that you can interact with, and you can like find out what happened to the crew and what happened to all these different things. This definitely wasn't the first game to do it, but this was one of the earlier first-person shooter games that had multiplayer.
Oh, cool.
And you could do like LAN parties. You could use Apple
Like
Talk
Doom.
or TCP/IP, stuff like that, to connect with people.
Cool.
It was a lot of fun, and I mean, as a Mac user as a child, this was one of the few games that like I just loved the heck out of.
It's like you didn't have Doom, so you had this pretty much.
Oh, we had Doom too.
You did?
They did port Doom.
Oh, they're good. Okay.
But it was just one of those little treasures because like nobody knew about Marathon unless they had a Mac and they liked these
Mac
things.
user.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I've never heard of these games, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think they got ported to the Xbox 360 and maybe Windows a handful of years ago.
Oh, really?
I remember being in a store and seeing the box for it. I was like, why am I seeing a box for Marathon? This game is from the 90s.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, they ported it. Cool.
That's cool.
I think they updated the graphics too. If you're a fan, speaking of Halo, because this really is kind of like a precursor to that. If you're a fan of the Red vs. Blue series by Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
There's a whole section of that series where I think they go back in time. The graphics that they are using, or the the game that they're doing footage capture from is Marathon.
Oh,
you can
that's
totally
cool.
tell.
That's really cool.
It's way like pixely and stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So this track is very hypnotic to me, especially with that like random. What were they saying? Were they saying marathon? Yeah, they're saying marathon like over and over again. That combined with the more like chilled out beats on this, like really kind of made me feel like this is the opposite of Savage. You know what I mean? Savage is in your face and totally 80s, and this was like a lot more laid back, but still, very kind of trancy. So
True.
Now, who is Power of Steven? I mean,
So
Power of Seven.
Power of Seven no longer exists. They were a digital music like content publisher. Like they made music for games, and the Paul Sebastien that I mentioned he was the head of them.
Okay.
They were bought out by a company called Headspace Inc., which is now Beatnik Inc.
Oh.
Power of Seven did music for Marathon 2 Durandal, Marathon Infinity, another game that I think started out on macOS and was ported later was called Oni. And
I know Oni. That came out on the PC and the PS2.
Yes.
That was like a launch game for the PS2. It was like a huge deal.
Oh.
Yeah. If I recall, it was almost positive it was a launch game. Anyways, so that's Paul Sebastian. That's Marathon 2. Since you won the coin toss for the next 20 episodes,
nothing changes.
Nothing changes. So it is your pick again.
So we'll go into my first pick of this free picks again. We are going to play a Genesis track. A lot of the stuff that I picked is way out of my comfort zone, so we'll see how this shakes down. This is Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Hidden Treasure.
Not Bust Loose.
Nope. 1993 Genesis game. The track is called Montana Max, and it was composed by Shinji Tasaka, Tsuyoshi Sekito, and Hideto Inoue. Hey, that was Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Hidden Treasure, the 1993 Genesis release. The track was Montana Max, and the composers were Shinji Tasaka, Tsuyoshi Sekito, and Hideto Inoue.
There was zero busting out in that track.
There was no busting loose whatsoever.
No busting loose.
There was definitely some running around, though.
There was. That definitely felt like a running track, or like a boss track, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think this is the track that plays when you fight Montana Max. One of the things that I noticed about this was the stereo effects.
I was going to say, yeah.
It felt like someone was just like running around in my head.
Maybe they were.
Bouncing around.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was going to say, too, is those really cool panning effects back and forth. So if you heard this and you're like, what are they talking about? Go grab some headphones, because
yes.
Definitely some stereo headphones, because this was a treat to listen to. So I've played this game.
Oh, yeah?
I have. I own it. I like it. I think I like it better than Buster Bust Loose.
Why is that?
Because there's less busting loose. No. I don't know what it is. I think it's the The controls, I think, are tighter than they are on Bust Loose. I feel like, which the two games are totally different, for the record.
Right, yeah.
They're both made by Konami, but they're two totally different Tiny Toons related games. So it's not like a Hyperstone Heist,
Turtles in Time.
Turtles in Time kind of thing. And this is just two totally different games.
Yeah, no, totally.
I remember playing this one and being more impressed with the tighter controls, and it felt less sluggish. It felt more responsive. And I think that's kind of what won me over. And this soundtrack is great. I mean, pretty much anything Konami on the Genesis back in the day was really stellar. They really knew what they were doing with the sound chip. I mean, you listen to anything from Contra Hard Corps to Castlevania Bloodlines to even like, I would say the more like Treasure developed games, because a lot of Konami staff left Konami and formed Treasure.
Right.
And they made stuff like the McDonaldland Treasure Land Adventure game. They made Gunstar Heroes, stuff like that. Alien Soldier, Hidenori Maizawa was involved with a lot of that stuff. And so it's interesting to hear both of those companies, because to me, they kind of felt like one.
Yeah.
At least in terms of the music itself, it felt pretty cohesive.
That's fair. I mean, they really knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I kind of pulled out of this is I'm not really a fan of like the bass sounds, because at first like it kind of felt like they were a little bit twarmpy and not really what I like to hear.
Sure.
But the more I listened to the track, and the more I kind of like let it sort of flow through me, the more I realized that I think that's actually what they were going for. Not that they were trying to sound bad, but they were trying to sound goofy and like Looney Tunes-ish.
Right.
And like once that sort of hit me, the track came together a lot more, and that's one of the reasons that I picked it, because I wanted to do this game because I like Bust Loose.
Sure.
And I haven't played this one yet. I'm actually going to have to, based on your suggestion
cheap.
here.
You can find it anywhere for like $6. Oh, we gotta fix that, son.
I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of room for any more consoles. You do. I'll just come play it at your place.
You always have room for more consoles.
When we move my retro stuff, when I finish the basement and move all my retro stuff and have like a retro cave in the basement, then I'll have more space.
There you go. All right.
Until then, I do want to give this a try, because it from what you're saying, it sounds like I like Buster Bust Loose on the SNES, and this sounds both, audibly sounds really fun, and from what you're talking about, like the tighter controls.
Yeah, you'll have to come over sometime and play it, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So these composers,
I mean,
Konami.
Yeah, clearly. Shinji Tasaka started with Vulcan Venture in 1988 as a sound editor, and a lot of the credits that are here are sound editor, sound director, design, stuff like that. So we've got Kit and Caboodle in 88, Cave Noir in 91, Fantastic Journey in 94, and their last game was Solar Assault in 1997.
Okay.
Then we've got Tsuyoshi Sekito, started out a little later in 1989 with Motocross Maniacs, doing music composition on that. Developed by Konami, but published by Ultra Software.
Well, yeah, that's Nintendo's.
Yeah.
That's because of Nintendo's copyright stuff or their trademark stuff or whatever. Basically, real quick, developers were not allowed on the NES to release, I think it's more than 5 games in a year, and that was done to prevent over-releasing of games, which was happening like crazy with the Atari 2600.
I was gonna say, isn't that part of like the whole video game crash?
Yeah,
like the saturation
because
of the market
people were dumping games onto the market that were very poorly made, and they were just flooding the market, and all one company would release 10 games or 15 games or whatever.
But I thought that was the whole point of like the Nintendo seal of approval. Like the game had to be good. Nintendo had to say, we're good with this and we're going to publish it. So why do you have?
That's obviously not true, because the game Darkman exists on the NES and that game is garbage.
Fair point.
So I think it's less important to worry about the seal of quality in terms of the games being quote unquote good or bad. I think it had more to do with them saying, okay, this game is not broken, meaning you can start it at the beginning and finish it. So you could play it from start to finish and finish the game without, that as I think what the seal of approval
that makes
about.
a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm thinking of it, there are plenty of games that I played on the NES that weren't.
Yeah.
Mr. Sekito also did a fairly large resume here. We've got music composition on Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake in 1990.
Metal Gear Solid 2 Solid Snake.
Solidly.
That's so Metal Gear. That's so solid.
Sick.
Solid dudes. Metal Gear Solid dudes. Metal Gear 2 Solid Dudes. It's like 2 crude dudes.
We'll call it Iron Cog Solid Dudes.
They all have the power of Steven.
Oh, they do.
They do.
Chocobo's Dungeon 2 in 1998. They did music composition on Chrono Trigger 2008, movie sound composer.
Yep.
What else we have?
That
here?
would be the PS1 version, how they did the animated movies in that version. And the DS version, yeah.
Right. They did arrangement on basically all the Dissidia games. Dissidia Final Fantasy, Duodecium.
So basically moved over to Square.
Yeah. No, like
Square
literally,
Enix.
because then we've got Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, they did music and arrangement. We've got Theatrhythm, Final Fantasy Curtain Call, they did music data support. Composition on Kingdom Hearts Unchained X. Secret of Mana, the one that came out in 2018. And then they did music on Kingdom Hearts 3 in 2019, most recently.
Kingdom Hearts 3-5.D, Power of Steven.
Yes.
The game.
That's coming out next year.
Yeah, that's next year. That's the next year revamp.
And then finally, Hideto Inoue started doing sound design on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1989. And again, as with the first one, a lot of these are sound design, sound programming. So
probably was responsible for bringing the songs to life on the Genesis in terms of the sound drivers.
Yep, exactly.
Their sound programming.
Yeah, so we'll just go with Sunset Riders in 93 that did sound design, Fantastic Journey again in 94, and their last one was International Superstar Soccer 2000 in 2000.
Cool. All right, let's move on to TinTin. He is on the moon, and that is why the name of the game is called TinTin on the Moon. Whoa. This is the Commodore 64 game that came out in 1989. This is the title screen, also known as the main theme, and it's by Jeroen Tel. Hey, what is up, XVGM radio listeners? That was TinTin on the Moon. That was the title screen and also called the main theme on the C64, Commodore 64 version of the 1989 release of that game. It was by Jeroen, and wow, that really reminded me of an Alberto Jose Gonzalez track.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For sure. It's got that classic bounce that he had. Interestingly enough, it was developed and published by Infogrames or whatever, and they actually did a ton of games later on with Alberto Jose Gonzalez. So
yeah.
Kind of makes sense. If I recall, he got his start on the C64, I think, yeah, if I recall, or he was inspired by people like Jeroen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this really kind of reeks of a Alberto Jose Gonzalez track.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I didn't really think of that at first, but as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, that beat,
that
the
bounce.
whole thing has such a bounce to it. That's great.
Dude, it's a fun little jam to bob your head to. The only thing I will say is that it gets kind of, I don't want to say stale, because I was enjoying it throughout the entire process. But I will say that you kind of zone out after a while.
Yeah.
With it, because it's got that really catchy beat, that bounce to it, but it doesn't really, there's not any kind of time signature change that would pull you away from it. So it's just this constantly head bobbing beat that
really good background music.
It is. It's great background music, but it doesn't stand out in the sense that it doesn't have parts. You know what I mean? To me, I mean, I think it diverts a little bit towards the end, but for the most part, it's just that.
The thing on this that stood out for me wasn't necessarily the song itself.
Okay.
I thought the track was great, but what stood out was just that C64 sound.
Yeah.
The Commodore 64 wasn't something that I really grew up with. I had one friend from childhood through college that I can remember that actually had a Commodore 64.
Same here.
And I think we only ever played one game at one point on it. Everything else was we were playing Saga Frontier, Final Fantasy.
You're playing console stuff.
Yeah. We're when I knew them, it was in the heyday of the PS1 era.
Yeah,
so
same here actually.
Yeah. So
I had a friend of mine exactly the same thing. He had a Commodore 64. He liked to kind of mess around with it from time to time. But it was just one of those things that you looked at and you're just like, ugh.
It seemed to me kind of like an old Apple IIe, and why are we going to do that?
Right.
And I kind of regret that, because as I'm hearing more Commodore stuff, I mean, we had that whole episode where it was Commodore 64 versus the Commodore 64 downports, and I liked a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
And this is just another thing. I like the sound that it makes. It's a very dirty, crunchy sound.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it awakens something in me.
It invoked the power of Steven.
Invoke the power of Steven.
Yeah.
It reinforces how much of a VGM lover I am.
Yes. I would agree with you there, but the only thing I will say is I think I've always been cool with C64 on a musical level. I've never really been that cool gameplay-wise. Just the stuff is just...
That's fair.
I grew up with the NES. You grew up with the Intellivision. Right,
well, I started with the Intellivision.
Yeah.
I would say I more grew up with the NES and SNES. The early years, we had an Intellivision. I played that.
I mean, I would go over a friend's house back then, and I had a friend who had an Atari 2600, and he had Frogger and stuff like that. And I would watch him play it, and I'd be like, ugh. Even back then, and I was never, I've never really been, a graphics guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think stuff on the Genesis looks great. I think stuff on the Super NES looks great. I think stuff on the Super NES typically looks better, but I've seen some stuff on the Genesis that will blow you away.
Yeah,
so it's I've kind of blossomed in that aspect of my gaming interests, where after, PS1, PS2, I kind of was whatever, anything looks good. It never really bothered me graphically. But I look at stuff like the C64, I look at stuff like the Atari, the Intellivision, and I'm like, I can't. It's just too early, and it's just not fully developed enough for me. They're not bad games, they're just not something I would enjoy. So it's this is like a soundtrack delivery machine. You know what I mean? I'll listen to the soundtracks to C64 stuff till I'm blue in the face.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the things. I'm getting more of an appreciation for it now, because I didn't really hear a lot of that music.
Sure.
In the past, in my childhood. So now that I'm hearing more of it, I'm like, yeah, I really like the sound, and I really wish I had heard more of this stuff.
Yeah. But anyways, TinTin, he's a character
French.
French comic. And so he goes to the moon in this one, or reaching the moon is your challenge in this. There's two different parts of this game. One is flying around in the spaceship through space, and it's like the spaceship, you're staring at the spaceship, like the back engine of it, and while you're doing that, you could fly around, you'll see the sides and stuff, and you could like shoot at things like almost like a Galaga kind of thing, but like front facing.
Yeah.
In a way. It's almost as if like Galaga turned everything to its side, and you were staring at the ship from the back end.
Oh.
Yeah. It's pretty weird. So, kind of like Star Fox. Yeah. And then the other part is you're going through these different like ships, and it turns into a more like 2D side-scrolling aspect. With the flying missions, you're trying to collect 8 red spheres, and yellow spheres will boost your energy, so you got to get those as well. For these more platform-styled gameplay moments, you're trying to take on the evil Captain Jurgen. He's tied up a bunch of the crew for these ships that you're visiting, and so he's planted bombs and started fires. So you got to extinguish the fires, you got to touch the bombs to stop them from exploding, and then you got to save the crew members as well. And that's pretty much it. So that's the game. Yeah, there's not a lot to it. There were several ports in that same year. Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, DOS, and ZX Spectrum. This one is the one with the bomb song that you just heard. The Amiga version, believe it or not, doesn't, at least I couldn't find any clips with music.
Yeah.
So, and I know that the Amiga, a lot of the games, like, they have a feature where you could turn off the music. But every single clip that I watched, the music was not turned off. There was no music. There was no music, so I'm assuming that there's no music. It's like all ambient noise for the most part. So, yeah, which is kind of a bummer, because I would have loved to hear something like this on the Amiga.
It was really good. It had a good swing to it.
Sure, for sure. All right, so Jeroen we've talked about before on the podcast. He has done tons and tons of work on the Commodore 64, all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think we talked about him a lot on the C64 Downports episode.
Yeah, he did the Golden Axe track that we played. Yeah. So let's move on to your next pick. What do you got?
All right. So this is a little game called Star Control 2, the Ur-Quan Masters. This is originally a DOS game that came out in 1992. It was also came out in the 3DO in 1994. The track is called Starbase Commander and was composed by Burke Trieschmann, Dan Nicholson, Riku Nuottajärvi, Eric Berge, Erol Otus, Marc Brown, Aaron J. Grier, Kevin Palivec, and Tommy V. Dunbar.
Ooh.
Welcome back, listeners. That was Star Base Commander from Star Control 2, the Ur-Quan Masters, the DOS 1992 or 3DO 1994 release. Composers on this one, there's a lot, so we'll just go through them one by one later. I know I said in one of the previous episodes that I would never do a Capcom game with a million composers again. Well, it's not Capcom, so no, I somewhat regret picking this one only because of how many composers. Man? It's a good track.
Yeah, it's a great track.
I was actually looking for something from the 3DO that had like good music, so I wanted to try to showcase it. I found this, and then I found out that it came out on DOS first, but I said screw it because I really like this track.
This is some crazy pantastic music.
Yeah.
You got that stereo panning back and forth. Well, you know, again, you didn't listen on headphones, put some headphones on.
Definitely listen to this one in stereo.
Yeah, because you're going to miss exactly half of the track. They put some of the channels in one, and then some of the bass beat basically in the other.
Yeah, like the right ear has all of your like rhythm and beat, and then a lot of your harmony and melody is in the left ear. And then as it ramps up, like things change, and it gets pretty good.
For sure.
Just for something that came out so early in the 90s, it has a really good techno feel. It feels kind of like some of the techno that I was listening to in the later 90s, which I find the timeline kind of amazing. I'm hearing techno that I was hearing later in the 90s in a game that came out in the early 90s.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. It was kind of like ahead of its time.
Yeah,
in a
there
way.
you go. Those are the words that I was looking for.
Them's the words.
Although, considering the game, I guess that really shouldn't be super surprising. If you haven't heard of Star Control 2, you're likely either younger or weren't much into PC gaming, because this game has apparently stayed on a lot of PC Gamer best of all time lists.
Wow,
so,
really?
Yeah, in 1994, PC Gamer US named this the 21st best computer game ever. That same year, PC Gamer UK named it the 33rd best game ever.
Wow.
And in 2011, it is still on, as of 2011, it was still on PC Gamer's best games list. It was number 52 of best computer games of all time.
Jeez.
It was pretty big. Like, this game is an epic. Like, in the traditional sense of the word epic, it's not like, oh, it's so awesome. Like, this game is huge. So the sort of story that you have here is that you start off as the commander of this precursor starship, this sort of advanced technology that was found that sort of built itself, more or less. Like, there's a genius child that was born on this planet and was able to sort of understand how to turn on this machine which built this starship, and this kid was the only one that could basically pilot it.
Right.
So you run the crew and make sure that everything's running while this kid's doing what he needs to do. But you get to Earth and find out that it's been enslaved by the Ur-Quan.
Of course.
Which is a race of aliens that are very, very violent. And you find out later in the game that there's like a subsection of the Ur-Quan. Like, the Ur-Quan have their own civil war going on. There's a subsection of them that want to wipe out all existence in the universe. And then there's like the Ur-Quan that you're normally fighting, which are the ones that just want to enslave the entire universe. So it's like, one isn't better than the other. They're both awful.
Right.
But it's an adventure game. There's sort of like shoot 'em up aspects. There's space battles. You need to basically rebuild this alliance by going out and exploring the galaxy and either befriending alien races or taking advantage, like exploiting their weaknesses to get them to sort of get them on your side, to build this alliance to take on the Ur-Quan. And it seems pretty massive. Like, there are literally hours and hours of dialogue in the game, because there's all these things you can do. I find it interesting that this is such an early game, and it has not really a moral system, so to speak, but like you have choices you can make. Like, you can either work with these aliens and do what you can to befriend them and build this alliance on good principles, or you can go sort of the underhanded method and sort of, not that you're subverting them, but you're more or less taking advantage of them and being like, oh, well, I'm going to exploit your weakness, and if you don't come help us, then maybe we'll blow you up or something like that.
Oh goodness. Okay then.
It sounds pretty cool. There's also a 2-player mode called Super Melee, but it's just ship to ship combat, so you're basically like blowing each other up. but it's pretty cool. Like when you're in your ship and trying to chart your courses or figure out where you're going to go, like you can see like the solar system, pick out what planets or where it is that you want to go. On the right side of your screen, you have sort of like your ship status, how your systems are doing and whatnot. And you have to be smart about how you go about navigating both in the traditional sense and navigating these political climates.
I see.
Huge.
Interesting. And so the rest of the soundtrack, is it mostly like this as well, or?
So a lot of the soundtrack is very ambient, so I'm not sure exactly where this track plays in the game, but a lot of the stuff, like when you're just like sort of looking at your star maps and whatnot, it's kind of like ethereal, sort of esoteric. It just so happens this track was like the first track that I listened to, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I played some of the other stuff, and not that it's bad, but it wasn't stuff that I wanted to play on this episode, because it's just, I gotta want to put our listeners to sleep. It's basically like kind of relaxing, calming music to try to get you to focus on the stuff that you need to do in the game.
Right.
So these composers, to keep this
short and sweet,
under 2 hours, their first game, something random in the middle, and their last game. So Burke Trieschmann started out doing music composition on Total Eclipse in 1994. Then we will go with Gex 3. Deep Cover Gecko did music composition on that in 1999. With John Baker.
Yep.
And their last audio credit is Toe Jam and Erol, Back in the Groove in 2019. They're listed as the audio guru.
Sweet.
Yes. Dan Nicholson started out doing music remixing in this game, Star Control 2, 1992. Then they did The Horde. They did additional music in that in 1994, and their final credit was Ur-Quan Ultra in 1994 for music. Looks like they went on to do QA, because they've got some more recent credits under quality assurance in a lot of Windows games. Riku Nuottajärvi only has 2 audio credits here. They did remixes on this game in 1992 and additional music on The Horde in 1994. Eric Berge did 3 games according to Moby Games: Star Control 2 in 1992, The Horde in 94, and Alien Logic in 94. Erol Otus did start out in music in 1991 on the first Star Control. Then they did some Skylander voices in Skylanders Spyro's Adventure in 2011, and their final credit is Skylanders Imaginators in 2016, again for voice actor. It looks like most of their stuff is actually voice acting, aside from Star Control in 1991. In fact, in Star Control 2, they are listed as voices, so it looks like they did some of the voices in this game. Marc Brown is just Star Control 2 in 1992. They are listed for music in that. Aaron J. Grier, same thing. They did music remixes in Star Control 2. Kevin Palivec, again, Star Control 2, music, that's it. And finally, Tommy V. Dunbar started out in 1984 doing music for Ur-Quan, The Light in the Dark. And then they went around and did some other things. They did some original music in Mail Order Monsters in 1985, and Star Control 2 is actually their last credit, 92.
All right, then.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful.
And I did it all by myself.
And that's perfect timing, because it looks like we're getting a phone call.
Hey. Go ahead and throw that over, Janine. Let's see who we got. XVGM radio listener, you are on the air. What can we do for you?
Hi, my name's Nick.
Hey, Nick, do you have a last name?
Well, it's not important, but I was wondering if you could play a game soundtrack for me. The entire thing, or just one song. Either way, it's from a game called Night Slave. It's on the PC-98.
Okay.
I really want to hear Initial Velocity, Stage 1-A. I really like the girls in that game.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Cut the line.
Yes, please.
Cut the line.
Jeez.
This guy.
You know him?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah. Maybe in another time I knew him at one point. But let's listen to Nick's pick. Night Slave. This is the PC-98 eroge game that came out in 1996. This track is Initial Velocity Stage 1-A, and it's by PANDA, better known as Yuki Nakayama. Welcome back, and that was Night Slave. That came out on the PC 98 in 1996. That was Initial Velocity Stage 1-A, and that was by PANDA, better known as Yuki Nakayama.
Groovy.
Yeah, no, I was feeling this. I love the little solo that it kind of kicked off at. It's good stuff. I mean, I always am on board with a groovy PC 98 track, and Night Slave is full of them. So yeah.
Now, so like there was a couple different like bass pieces to this, but I really liked hearing a slap bass in there a little bit. Like, it wasn't sort of the prominent bass instrument, but there was enough of it that I could pick it out. And then I wasn't sure. I think it's supposed to be a synth keyboard, but I could see it as like a shredding guitar. But there was some really cool like fast runs that were going on sort of towards the middle of the song that were really catching.
There was most definitely a guitar, but I would say it was the part where you can almost hear the picking going on, where it's like that whole part just feels like a 70s funk guitar, just kind of creates that vibe to
I could see that.
Yeah,
it must have been like synth keys or something, because it was just like it was just like really fast. And it was really cool.
Probably keys. Then. So Night Slave is a eroge mecha game. And eroge, of course, is the it's one of the naughty ones, folks. So
don't go looking for this if you're underage.
Do not. No. Get your mom and dad's permission before you do anything involving Night Slave.
Just anything at all.
Anything, yeah. So it was a very adult-oriented game. It's all about a terrorist organization called Slave Dog, and they are threatening the very existence of everyone. There's a special, like, counter-terrorist squad named Steel Fox, and it's all female run, of course. Of course, why not? And, I mean, girl power, right?
Yeah, no.
That's what's up. So, they also have a company called Neologic, which helps them create these assault suits that they wear, which can be combined with their own, like, weapons.
Sounds kind of like Bubblegum Crisis.
Yeah, a little bit, except way more like naughty bits.
Well, I mean,
naughtiness.
Yeah.
But it's a side-scrolling action game, very similar to the Assault Suits series, like Assault Suit Lanos, Assault Suit Lanos 2, Cybernator, Target Earth, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. So you play as a girl named Ray, and she's in an armored fighting robot, super fighting robot.
Mega Man?
Yeah. Mega Girl, I guess.
Yes.
It's mostly just shooting, blowing stuff up, just like with Assault Suit. So
jumping and shooting?
Jumping and shooting man, or lady.
Woman.
Jumping and shooting lady. So you can get like power-ups, you can get like health, shields, etc., etc. You can upgrade your weapons. The reason why it's labeled as an eroge game is because there's extensive cutscenes, lots of dialogue that kind of move around throughout the game. Tons of nudity, tons of like very sexual things, so don't play this around the kiddios. The kiddios.
Wow.
Yeah. So this one is developed by a company called Melody. They are a brand of a company called Panda House. Pretty much assuming Panda House has something to do with Panda. Also known as Yuki Nakayama, the composer, who has done mostly music for adult games, stuff for the PC 98. Previously a member of a company called Doors Music, and also founded this company, Panda House. So yeah, that's it.
Panda House.
Yeah, so he's basically the founder of Panda House. But he's done stuff like Kurayami, Rendezvous, Aotori, Argonauts, Pato Girl, Koi Labo, Burst Error, Eve the First, which I think was a Saturn game, Cosmic Psycho, Dragon City, Dragon's Eyes, tons and tons and tons of stuff. And again, all very erotic. So, yeah, stay away from this one if you don't want to offend somebody, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah. So, speaking of mech stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of robots
and mechs and stuff.
Take a soft turn into giant robots. This is from a game called Mobile Suit Gundam F91, Formula Report 0122. Gundam is a an anime series that is close to my heart. So,
Gross.
and here. A lot of the music from this game is actually really good. So we're going to hear the staff roll. This is a Super Famicom exclusive game. It came out in 1991. We did not get it here in the States, but boy, oh boy, am I going to try.
I think that's what they call exclusive.
That's what I said.
I know.
Okay.
You repeated yourself.
Did I really?
Yeah, you totally
I
did.
I see. So this exclusive game came out exclusively on the Super Famicom.
Yeah. Only
on the Super And this was composed by Norihiko Togashi.
Hey, Rakua! You going to Side 5 tomorrow for patrol?
Yeah, I hope so. I've been flying around in the Zeta Gundam all day, and boy are my jets tired.
Har. Phew. What's that smell?
Oh, I don't know.
Wait a sec.
Hey, stop that. Why are you sniffing me? Cut it out.
Dude. You stink.
Yeah, I know. Well, more specifically, my Gundam does. She's not feeling very fresh right now after battling the Titans for the last 24 hours.
Well, I've got something that can help with that. Introducing Gundodorant.
Gundodorant? Sounds exquisite.
You bet your sweet Gundam it is. Gundodorant is deodorant for your Gundam. Just spray on after every battle, and after 2 to 24 hours, no more smells. Just watch. Now let's just come back and smell the scented victory.
Wow, that's Gundodorific. Thanks, cats.
Don't thank me. Thank the good folks over at Blamco.
Blamco, serving the colonies since 20XT6. Now available in Solar Rainbow, Fresh Scented Aqualung, and Home Sweet Home Tropical. Warning, do not spray directly in eyes, mouth, or cockpit. Use where prohibited. Void in the colony of Utah. Welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was the staff roll from 1991's Super Famicom game Mobile Suit Gundam F91 Formula Report 0122, as composed by Norihiko Togashi.
The exclusive, Japanese-only, Super Famicom-only game. Exclusively.
Yes.
So, I know nothing about Gundam, so you are going to need to fill the holes in. But I will say I dug this track. It's a very kind of, you did it kind of vibe, which I dig. I love that type of stuff in the staff roll, so always good to hear.
Yeah, very uplifting, which is one of the things that I liked about it. A lot of the tracks from this game are really good. Some of them were a little too short, and some of them just didn't really fit the feel that I was going for, but I just kind of kept coming back to the staff roll, and ultimately it was just like, that's what I want to do.
Sure.
Just also to give a brief shout out, this game was put onto my radar by our mutual friend of ours, Brian.
Okay.
So he brought this game up to me when we were camping a few months ago. It looks like a lot of fun, and it sounds like a lot of fun.
Sure.
But as far as Gundams go, I mean, there's so many Gundam shows, movies, and everything else out there. Gundam F91 is actually one of the ones that I have not yet seen. I've been, over the last few years, trying to watch through, because I was never into Gundam when I was a kid. It was too serious for me, and I just didn't like it. And then at some point, something changed, and I started watching the original Mobile Suit Gundam, fell in love with it, and just started watching everything straight through. And I decided to try to watch things, not chronologically for release, but chronologically in the Universal Century is the time period that most of these take place in. So I've been trying to watch them sort of like from the beginning of that. And of course, they keep coming out with new series that fit in different places in the timeline, so it's basically a lost cause to try to do that. But I've been fairly, so I watched all of Mobile Suit Gundam. I watched 08th MS Squad, which takes place during the end of that series. Zeta Gundam, Double Zeta Gundam. F91 takes place later in the time period. I think it's maybe 50 or so years after the first one. Either way, I haven't gotten there yet, so I don't know the full story of this movie, because Gundam F91 is not a series, it's a movie from what I remember. But the movie is Mobile Suit Gundam F90, not F91. So this takes place 2 years after that. And the Mars Zeon organization affiliation group, that was thought that they were wiped out, and they were not. They return in this game to threaten the Earth sphere with just a bigger army. So in response, the Earth Federation forms a group called the Anti-EF Organization Extermination Unit, with the goal of destroying the new sort of mobile suit that the Mars Zeon faction, that's what I was looking for earlier, faction that they have created and sent after Earth. And there are 12 acts in the game, world zones, levels, whatever you want to call them, and a number of characters, none of which I recognize because I haven't seen the movie yet. But there's some pretty cool Gundams that are in this one, and I can't wait till I get to this movie, and then I'm going to see if I can find the game and play the game.
Nice. Very cool. Regarding the rest of the tunes, you said that there's some that are more shorter and everything.
Yeah, they're kind of all over the place. There's some that are kind of low-key, there's some that are really high energy. It's just, I kind of kept coming back to this one, partly because I thought it was a good length.
Gross. So, the only Gundam game I know of is the fighting game that came out on the Super NES.
The Gundam Wing.
Gundam Wing Endless Duel, I think it's called.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. And
that was a lot of fun.
It's got a really good soundtrack by, I think, Hiroyuki Watsuki, if I recall. So
that game's a lot of fun. I mean, that's just a pure fighting game.
Right.
But, I mean, for a mech fighting game, the only other mech fighting game I can remember playing is Virtual On, which, I mean, head and shoulders above the Gundam game, but it's totally different. Like, you're talking about Saturn and arcade 3D versus a 2D fighter.
Right. Totally different.
Yeah.
So this composer,
Norihiko Togashi, started out doing music translation in Martian Maze in 1990. That's not Martian like Martians, that's M-A with an umlaut, R-C-H-E-N. That's a TurboGrafx-16 game.
Oh.
So they started there, and then they've gone on to do Music Brother in Super Wagon Land in 1991. And they have been uncredited as a music composer in Crayon Shinchan Arashi o Yobu Enji in 1993, as well as Disney's Bonkers in 1994.
Those are two very different things, Shin-Chan and Bonkers.
Yes, well, Disney and potty humor.
Right, yeah.
And And then they've mostly gone on to do like sound programming, sound engineering and stuff. Their last audio credit is as sound effect on Disaster Report in 2002.
Interesting.
Yes.
Cool. Looks like we are getting a call on our superhero hotline. We very rarely get calls on this, so we better pick it up right now. That means somebody is in trouble and they need to hear a song to get their blood pumping. Janine, forward that over to us.
XVGM Radio, who is this and how can we help you?
Hey, Bub, this is Wolverine. I need you to do me a favor. Fast! I need to hear Xavier's Institute Part 2. Play it right now for Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, Bub.
Oh, sure. Thanks for calling, Wolvie. Looks like he hung up already. I'm guessing he is probably fighting some Sentinels or perhaps getting
Something.
stuck by Magneto.
Goodness. So let's play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. This game came out this year on the Nintendo Switch in 2019. This song is Xavier Institute Part 2, and it's by Takehiro Umeda and Masafumi Okubo.
XVGM Radio.
Welcome back, XVGM Radio listeners. That was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which came out this year, 2019, on the Switch exclusively. That track was called Xavier Institute Part 2, and it's by Takahiro Umeda and Masafumi Okubo.
I can see why Logan wanted this one played. This was a pretty pumping track.
For sure.
I like the mix of the rock elements and some of that...
Dubstep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For whatever reason,
The warbs and the wubs.
I wrote scree in my notes.
I was going to say that the use of sound effects that are kind of like instilled in that dubstep stuff is pretty neat. That that like weird
grindy noise.
Grindy whistle thing was pretty neat, and that kind of kicked off the dubstepness of the track.
That's the scree that I was referring to.
Right. And I gotta say, what kind of pumped me up about this track is it's a faster version of a different track.
Really?
For Xavier Institute Part 1. So here's the skinny on this game. This is the third Ultimate Alliance game. Came out exclusively between a partnership between like Marvel, I guess Disney you could say, Nintendo, and Tecmo. This Tecmo Koei made this game.
They did the other ones too, right?
No, they did not. That's what's interesting about this. I think Activision were the ones who did those.
You're right.
And so they didn't... I don't believe that they own the rights to the Ultimate Alliance franchise. It's owned by Marvel, I believe. So the fact that they released this game all these years later after Ultimate Alliance 2... This game kind of returns it back to that more arcadey gauntlet vibe that the first game had. And the second game kind of got... I never finished the second game. I am almost positive I finished the first game. I love all these games in the series. Going back to X-Men Legends. Me and some of my friends back home would play X-Men Legends 1 and 2 all the time. And
was that the PSP game?
So X-Men Legends 2 did come out on the PSP. Okay. But it's on the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox. Both of those X-Men Legends games
That's
were.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
It was fun. I don't think I've played almost all these games, and I've never finished one of them.
Really? I could see that. Yeah. They're kind of a grind. X-Men Legends 1 I beat only because I played with friends. And then X-Men Legends 2, I remember we started. I don't think we finished it. I think I've talked about this game before, but the Legends games were the games where I would hang out in my friend's basement till like 3 a.m. playing these games. And I would fall asleep playing, and while I was playing, I would still move. So you'd see me like nod off, and you'd just start seeing Wolverine like walking into a wall. And my friends would be like, "Dude, come on, wake up! Like, come on, you're falling asleep." So then the Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I think I got it on the Wii first because I had a Wii and I didn't have a 360. So I remember playing it there, and then I ended up getting it later on the 360, and I enjoyed it. I think I may have beaten it. Ultimate Alliance 2, I just didn't get that far in. I think I got maybe a couple missions in, and I was like, this is too complex. I don't know. So this third game kind of returns it a little bit more to the series roots. But the whole plot is based on the Infinity Stone saga.
Right.
So this one, pretty much you're just trying to avoid Thanos from getting the stones. And I'm about 11, 12 hours into this, and I'm having a blast. It's a great game to come home to at night because it doesn't take too much brain power to actually play through the game, in the sense that it's not like a puzzle-based game. It's more like, hey, I need to get from point A to point B, and I need to kill as many dudes as possible. In between. There's a leveling up system where you just level up your characters. You can switch your characters, a couple times throughout the level. You get new characters every single level. And every single level is based on like some sort of portion of the Marvel universe. It's a really fun game. Like it's one of those games where you can play with people online, so it's got online multiplayer. It's cool. It's fun. I wish more people checked out the game. I got a couple of people to buy it, and they were like, "Cool!" And then they started playing it, and they were like, "And I'm done." And I was like, "No, but wait, it's fun. Play with me." So Takahiro Umeda and Masafumi Okubo were labeled as the composers on this one. For Umeda, this is his only audio credit. He's done some art and graphics for stuff like Astral Chain, Final Fantasy 15, and Left Alive. Masafumi Okubo has done Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13 in 2016. He was the synthesizer programmer. Other than that, nothing. So these guys are brand spanking new to the Tecmo world.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's move into your game that you've got coming up. What do you got for us?
So this one's a little bit more low-key, a little more relaxing. This game is called The Kingdom for Keflings. This was an Xbox Live Arcade game that came out in 2008. The track that you will hear is called Fall Music, and was composed by Eric Nunemaker, Mike Nielsen, and Alex Hall. Welcome back. That was Fall Music from A Kingdom for Keflings, the 2008 Xbox Live Arcade release, composed by Eric Nunemaker, Mike Nielsen, and Alex Hall.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw indeed. So this pick from me is really one of my only nostalgic picks for this episode.
Oh, okay.
This is a game that I actually have played a lot. I've dumped a lot of time into both A Kingdom for Keflings and A World for Keflings, both Xbox Live Arcade games.
I always thought it was Keflinks. I don't know
It's a
why.
G, not a K.
I know. I don't know why, but every time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's that Keflinks game.
Fair enough.
Tell me about this one. I know nothing about it.
It's almost like a real-time strategy game if there were no threat of danger. So, not to say that there's no way to lose the game. I don't know if there actually is a game over screen or not, but like take Warcraft 2 and, you know, take the resource gathering and the upgrading and everything else and take away the opponents that you're fighting. It's called The Kingdom for Keflings because you are this giant person. In I think both the games, you can take your Xbox 360 avatar, and they're in the game, and the Keflings are all these like knee-high little people that are just kind of dumb and don't know what to do, and so you direct them, like, you know, you go harvest trees, you go.
So you're giving them tasks to do stuff to help like build your world.
Exactly. So they collect things, and as you collect wood or rocks, you can have them build things to refine the wood into lumber and the rocks into stones and stuff like that, and you keep kind of refining and you can build bigger and better things, and as you build more stuff, more Keflings come, and then you have more people to go do the stuff.
Kind of like ActRaiser a little bit.
Yeah. And the game basically ends. I mean, it doesn't really end to end, but like you win the game when you have completed building all the things. Like you have tasks like, you know, build this thing or collect this much stuff, and as you go through, like the tasks kind of upgrade into bigger things and better things, and when you finally completed all the tasks, you can still do stuff, but there's not really, in this game, there's not a whole lot of point in hanging around and doing stuff. Like once you've done all the stuff,
that's it.
Yeah, the only thing that you're really doing is like you're continuing to gather stuff. You can build more things, but like you've built everything at this point, so there's not really a point in building like 25 more homes or anything.
Okay. Based on that and the music that we just heard, I can understand why this would be really fun to listen to, because it's that bouncy kind of country music track that just, it kind of feels warm and vibrant, but at the same time folk songish and country-ish. So I can understand that. It's not something I would listen to outside of the game, but I can appreciate listening to it in the game. I think I'd be bobbing my head, doing a ring-a-ding and a doong-a-doong and, charging up my steam power and, going full steam ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat because the folks that made this game actually released the soundtrack online so you can download it for free.
I saw that. That's how I got the track.
Yeah. But, and the seasons change throughout the game. So,
right.
like, this is fall music. There's also summer music, winter music,
right.
and spring music. And then I think there's also, like, title theme and whatnot. But each season has its own sort of distinct music to it, and I can't remember if it's this game or World. I think it's Kingdom for Keflings, where the music actually evolves as it goes. Like, it starts out more or less bare bones, and as you build up and as you progress in the game, the more layers kind of get added to the track.
Okay.
So, like, you start out with this almost minimalist kind of music, and by the time you're at the end of the game, you may not have noticed, but the music has gotten a lot more packed with stuff.
Kind of like in Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
When you go from map to map, the music gets a little bit more complex each map.
Basically, yeah.
Cool. So these composers, I've not heard of any of them, I don't think. Maybe Mike Nielsen, but tell me about them.
They've done a handful of things. So Eric Nunemaker started out doing sound in Tony Miola's Sidekicks Soccer in 1993.
Okay.
There's a Genesis game he did in 1994 called Virtual Bart. He did music and sound effects for that.
Yep.
Oddworld Adventures in 1998. He
On
did
the
audio.
PS1.
Yep.
Saturn, probably. Yeah.
StarCraft Brood War, he did Sapphire Audio Director. That was also 1998.
Okay.
He did audio in Lego Bionicle in 2001. Oddworld Adventures 2 in 2000. The Mask of Zorro in 1999.
Okay.
The final entry that I see here is Nutjitsu in 2014.
Did you just say Nut Jitsu?
Yep, Nutjitsu.
Yeah, that's Nut Jitsu.
And the cover art, so this is a PS4, Xbox One, and Windows game. It looks like you play as a squirrel, a ninja squirrel. Mike Nielsen only has a couple of things here. They started out doing music in Band of Bugs in 2007, then they did Whirl of Keflings in 2010, and Ancients of Uga in 2010 as well.
Okay.
All of these are music credits. And then Alex Hall, the only audio credits there are Band of Bugs in 2007 and Kingdom of Four Keflings in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, so that takes us on to your next track.
Yeah, so we're going to go backwards in time to the PS1. This game is called Spider. Not Spider-Man, but Spider. This came out in 1997, and the track is called Conveyors, Circuit Boards, Hard Drives, and it's by Mr. Barry Leach.
Ooh, nice.
Thanks for joining us back on this Free Picks Again journey. That was Spider on the PlayStation 1. This came out in 97 or 96, depending on what region you're in. This track was called Conveyors, Circuit Boards, Hard Drives by Barry Leach. So what do you think of this one, Justin?
Pretty funky. The bass groove that was kind of humming along there was kind of the main focus that
for sure.
that I was getting on that. Mm-hmm. Almost reminded me of kind of like some of the Shinra stuff from Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, I could see that.
There's a sort of a quality to that bass groove that gets in there.
Yeah, the bass is just so pronounced in this.
Very, very
and
much.
it
very
was
clean too.
It is. It's really clean sounding, but it almost kind of kills the rest of the momentum for the track because you're so laser focused on that bass guitar that when you start hearing other stuff like the it almost feels like it's a different track entirely. You know, just playing over that groovy bass line. So I was really digging this track. This game is pretty neat. I'm going to be reviewing this one for my channel as a Patreon request. I do like requests where people can, you know, if they pay a certain amount per month, then they can request a shorter review. Somebody sent me a message and they were like, hey, this is the game I want you to cover. So I was like, all right, cool. And it's pretty neat. But Spider is a game where you play as a 2.5D or slightly 3D spider, like a mechanical cybernetic spider. Kind of reminds me of like if Ghost in the Shell on the PS1 was 2D, because that game is all 3D.
Yeah.
Where you could walk on pretty much any wall that you want. And this is kind of similar, but definitely shrunk down in terms of the capacity of things that you can climb on. You can climb on ceilings, you can climb on walls, you can climb on pretty much anything, but it's on just such a much smaller scale. You're going around these buildings in different parts of the world that you're in, this cybernetic style world, and you're going from places like the laboratory, the city. I think that's as far as I've gotten is the city. So I'm like 3 worlds in, I think, because you leave the laboratory and then you go into a factory kind of setting, and then you move into the city. So the whole point of this game is there was a break-in at this lab, and this scientist who kind of looks like... Do you ever see that show Farscape?
Yes.
Great show. Do you remember the dude with the goatee? He was bad at first. Like, his brother got killed by John Crichton. So that dude, the evil dude, he looks like the CG version of...
The spider?
Of the spider, the actor. I feel like they designed him after him because he looks just like him. So anyways, the scientist gets murdered, but his mind gets transferred into this cybernetic spider that he was working on. So the spider ends up following the intruders who have broken in and killed this guy. They basically wanted his like secrets or whatever. So they've stolen his research, they've stolen his body. You as the spider, you're going around killing other cybernetic creatures like bees and ants and all these, you know, different bugs. And as you're going through the level, you're trying to find like these little pieces of discs that will allow you to progress to the next level. So it's a pretty unique game. It doesn't strive to do anything like exceptionally different or exceptionally like better than anything else you've played. It's just a competent game. So Barry Leach, I feel like we play a lot of his stuff, but we never talk about him for whatever reason, which is weird because Barry Leach has done so much music. I feel
like we haven't done a whole lot of his stuff on the show.
Really? I feel like we've played stuff of his, but like, I don't know. Maybe we could like sit down and talk to him about his stuff because there's so much. His first credit was uncredited, and that was on Weird Dreams in 1988. Then he moved on to, just going to jump around here, Treasure Trap in 1990. He's most known for the Lotus games, like Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 in 1991, as well as the Top Gear games. Top Gear 92. He did the music in RoboCop 3. I'm not sure which version that is. Maybe the SNES version. I'm not sure. Lethal Weapon in 92. He did the music for that. Addams Family Pugsley's Scavenger Hunt in 92. Eek the Cat in 94. He did music and sound on that. Great soundtrack. I think he did that with Dean Evans. He did Top Gear Rally in 97. That's another game he's very well known for. He did the music design in Gauntlet Legends in 1999. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu has an awesome soundtrack by him in 2003. His final game is Horizon Chase Turbo, which came out in 2018. designed to kind of recapture the spirit of those Top Gear games. So that's it for Barry Leach, and that is my second and last pick. So let's go with your last pick.
All right, so for my last pick, I'm going with something that I'm pretty sure is fairly obscure. This is Sorcerer Striker. Came out in the arcade, Sharp X68000, and FM Towns in 1993, 94, and 95, respectively. The track is called Rock the Accept, or Boss 3, and was composed by Akira Takemoto and H. Holon. Welcome back, listeners. That was my last pick of the episode, Sorcerer Striker, the arcade Sharp X68000 and FM Towns game released in 93, 94, 95 respectively. The track was called Rock the Accept, also known as Boss 3, and it was composed by Akira Takemoto and H. Holon.
That was giving me some super Mega Man X4 vibes.
I was going to say, Mega Man X all the way.
Yeah, especially like the more synth-heavy, like PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah.
It sounds like a song where like you're running out of time for something.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I see it more as just sort of like maybe like an opening level or one of like not the main Maverick levels, but like one of the in-between levels or something.
Okay, I could see that too. Yeah. So tell me about this game. I know nothing about it.
It's a shmup. It's a scrolling shooter game, and the story of the game has to do with a goblin empire becoming super powerful in this world thanks to their charismatic king known as Gobligan.
Okay.
Who's actually a human who united the goblins. But on the other side, you have King Codwinner, who was aware of the goblins sort of like mass-producing magical weapons and whatnot. So he plans for the assassination of Gobligan as the only way to sort of stop all this. And 4 warriors end up volunteering to infiltrate the Goblin Empire to carry out this dangerous task. So in this game, you play as one of these 4 warriors, and you are, magically flying. It's a vertical scrolling shoot-em-up.
Okay.
But the theme, as opposed to like most of them, was like modern or futuristic. It's medieval fantasy.
Okay.
So you've got
Kind of like Elemental Masters.
yeah, there you go. Yep. So they're a mix of like modern and medieval weaponry and magic. The characters are the fighter named Gain, the witch named Cheetah, the reptile samurai named Miyamoto, or the necromancer named Bornum.
Okay.
And so they fly through the stages. There are 3 types of weapons, each distinguished by a different color and taking different shapes depending on the character that you have. So there's accurate homing fire, which is red. There's side weapons, shoot off to the side, which are blue. And then there's just like a powerful straight attack, which is green. You can change weapons by collecting magic books, and you can power them up by flying over, like collecting coins that appear on the stage.
Okay.
But it looks like a pretty standard vertical scrolling shmup. And it actually looks kind of fun.
Cool.
Never heard of this one before. Apparently, it was also re-released on the PlayStation 4 in 2017. It looks like it was ported, so you could download this on the PS4.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, it looks pretty neat.
Yeah. And the fact that there were different ports, I'm wondering how different is the sound on like the FM Towns version versus the arcade and the Sharp X68000. That'd be interesting to compare those.
Yep. And I should also mention that the version that we listened to, the version that I linked you to, I believe, was the Sharp X68000 version.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So that's what we heard.
Interesting.
Yes. Speaking of that music, the composers on this one, as I mentioned, we'll start out with H. Holon, because I have no information on this person. They were listed as a composer in a lot of the material that I was looking up for it, but I could not find what else they've done. I couldn't find anything about them. The name turns up a lot of...
Blank stares.
Yeah. Akira Takemoto, however, started out doing sound arrangement and composition on the cliffhanger Edward Randy in 1990.
Okay.
Went on to do other things like Mutant Fighter in 1991, Zico Soccer in 94, Tactical Soccer in 95. Their final game was Tomato Adventure, which was a Game Boy Advance game published by Nintendo, and was actually also ported to the Wii U much later.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up with another brand new Switch game. This just came out like a week or two ago, or a couple weeks ago. This is Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout. It's on the Switch, the PS4, and the PC, and again, came out in 2019. This track, I assume it is called Won't Forget, Can't Forget. The reason I say that is because the only way I was able to find that credit was not in the actual pull of the soundtrack. I found it on YouTube. So this track specifically was composed by Hayato Asano. Hey gang, you are back, and that was Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout. This came out on the Switch, the PlayStation 4, and the PC in 2019. This track was called Won't Forget, Can't Forget, and it's by Hayato Asano. I'm not sure about the rest of the soundtrack, but this track specifically is by him. So this is another Tecmo Koei game. I don't know why I picked 2 Switch Koei Tecmo games, but I did.
That's it. We gotta throw the whole episode out.
That's it. We're done. So this track goes places.
It does.
I was really feeling this when I first heard it. You know, it stands out from the rest of the soundtrack. I've listened to the whole rest of the soundtrack for the most part, and most of it is that really cheery, happy kind of vibe that the second part of this track goes with. But that beginning is like some Xenoblade stuff right there.
Yeah,
like
some pretty cool stuff going on.
If you told me that Yasunori Mitsuda wrote this track, I'd be like, yeah, I believe it. 2 reasons for that. One, because it sounds like something from like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or even like the first one by Yoko Shimomura. And the second reason is that second half of the track, when it does that pan flute breakdown, I was sitting there, I'm like, Justin, you're not prepped for this. Come on, gotta get ready. We gotta start Circle Pit. We're sitting there and we start rocking out to the pan flute solo. It really gives me some Chrono Trigger vibes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the real thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like the beginning of the track's like a Xenoblade Chronicles track, and then it kind of like morphs into, you know, away from that really like heavy symphonic percussion and all the like weird electronic stuff that's going on in the background. And then it kind of becomes this song that's very lighthearted, but very sad as well. Very kind of somber.
Yeah, there's a little melancholy there.
Yeah. But I really think that pan flute really drove this track home for me.
The pan flute was unexpected. That big pan flute solo. I was like, what is he getting me prepared for? And then it came in, and I was just like,
it dropped.
Okay,
and that was it. And then it kind of comes back into that initial part too, so everything kind of comes full circle.
Get some of that scratching going.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty neat. The name of the song, if it is Won't Forget, Can't Forget, is really kind of applicable to this song. The way I heard it was, Won't Forget was like a very, like, I'm not going to forget that you did this to me, that sort of thing. So it has this vibe that, like, almost as if, like, a character got killed or a character got hurt really bad. All the characters are kind of binding together to fight against whatever this is. That's why it reminded me of Xenoblade a little bit. But then Can't Forget leads into that more emotional, more somber moment. Well, I've done the battle, I've done the thing, I'm done with it now, and now I can kind of reflect on what happened. So that's kind of where I get the Can't Forget part. So if that is the name of the track, they did a really good job naming that and kind of applying some emotion to the actual feelings that you're feeling throughout the track. So
That's fair. The name of the track actually just sort of reminds me of Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Sorry. The first thing I thought of when I saw that.
I'm sitting here like pouring my heart and soul, being all deep and esoteric, and
Someone's got to balance you out.
and you're just like, yo, I just think of this party track, like, what? Party City, boo boo, yeah, air horn. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Thanks, Justin, for balancing us out so well.
Anytime. I mean, the track, obviously, nothing like that. When I first saw the title, I was just like, really? Is this some kind of like weird RPG party song?
This composer, Hayato Asano, before we get into the game real quick, has done a bunch of these Atelier games. I didn't even know Koei Tecmo did these. I thought it was some other, like, you know, NIS America or something like that did these. Started off with Atelier Chile, Alchemist of the Dusk Sea, and then another Atelier game after that, Atelier Eska and Lagi. And then did some other games, Atelier games, and then started doing Knights of Azure in 2015, and then the sequel, which came out on the Switch, Knights of Azure 2, Bride of the New Moon, that came out 2017, and then followed it up with this game, which actually came out all the way back. Well, it came out this year, but before that he did another Atelier game called Atelier Fierce. His final game is Gunya Fighter in 2019. So
Gunya.
Yeah, he's a relatively new composer to Tecmo Koei. Yeah, so this game is an interesting game. It's a new game in the Atelier world, which I know nothing about these games at all.
I feel like I've heard the name, but I agree. Like I don't actually know.
There's tons of games in this series. But the concept for this one is true-to-life youths that develop together, even if just a little bit. Story about this girl, her group of friends, they're about to become adults and figure out what the world is all about. So the game takes you through their journey, kind of going on like a daily life adventure with these characters. Apparently this has battles in it, like real-time combat. It's got a combination of turn-based command battle and real-time elements. So I'm thinking that it's very similar to like an action RPG sort of thing, maybe like a Xenoblade Chronicles or maybe like a Ys 8 sort of thing. But you play as this girl, Ryza. She's just a regular everyday girl and she's just looking to get away. So she goes to secret locations to with all of her friends to talk about like, you know, things that they could do. And one day she's like, I'm done with this, I'm gonna go explore. She goes to this place that's forbidden called the Island Across the Shore. So they end up meeting like a bunch of other people, an alchemist, and you know, they have a adventure that takes place during the summer, and it's one of those things, just like a lifelong journey sort of thing that they did when they were young. Yeah. Sort of thing. So
neat.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Dan Lawton, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Llama Adam, Jeremy Rutz, Peter Panda, Bedroth, Nick Davis, Brad Austin, Mixmaster, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGMRadio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
Justin, we are approaching episode 41 very rapidly. What do we got going on?
So 41 is going to be a cool episode.
Oh, yeah?
I see what I did there. We're going to be playing winter tracks, so either winter level related, winter games,
stuff with sleigh bells,
or
chimes,
ice, or like really chimey, icy type
snowy
stuff.
levels, right?
So get yourself a cup of hot cocoa, start a fire.
Yep, and grab your parka. I don't know. No, grab your winter clothes and boots, because we're going to go on a nice little trek through Winter Wonderland. And on top of that, we're going to be doing a video presentation giveaway amongst Justin and I. So we are going to be giving each other gifts for the holiday season. And so we will purchase gifts and then we'll exchange them on camera, I guess you could say. And then that will go up on the YouTube page, youtube.com/dongled. And you can watch it there. So what you could do is you could watch that intro, because we'll only do the intro. We'll do it right in the beginning. If you're just listening through audio on like Spotify or, you know, iTunes or whatever, podcatchers, you're not going to see the visuals.
But
so you'll hear it for sure.
So we'll have to describe what's happening as we're
Yeah.
For those of you that don't watch the video.
Right. So if you don't want to watch the video, you don't have to. But we're going to do the video as an extra special thing for the YouTube. So.
And as an extra special gift, that's actually coming out on December 25th. So that's coming out on Christmas.
Our Christmas gift to you and our final episode of the year.
Yeah.
All right. So this is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio.
Their final game was Tomato Adventure. Pardon me. I couldn't even say it without...
Wow.
their final,
Tomato and blah.
the final great game that they are credited for